All right, let me just go to my. All right. All right, so it looks like we have everyone here. Jen, you're just connecting to your audio. Hello, how are you? Can you hear us? Good.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
All right. So I think we're ready to get started right now, I believe. All right, so we'll move forward. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the opportunity to be here tonight at our education meeting on this Wednesday, June 8th. Today, I will be leading the meeting in absence of Ms. Valerie Cook-Henry, our Education Committee Chair. This evening, we have a few things that are on the agenda. We will be discussing our CSI improvement plan, which will be conducted and discussed by our assistant to the superintendent, our director of student services, Tyra Brown. And then we also have Mr. Warren Denenza that will also be speaking on the CSI improvement plan from he is our principal at the Penwood Middle School. Then we will be discussing a TSI improvement plan, which will also be addressed by Ms. Tyra Brown and also Dr. Lee, our principal at the high school. Also, we will be discussing our district-wide survey that was sent out. And the people that will be presenting that is Ms. Danielle Seward, which is our Executive Director of Student Services, and also Dr. Mark Lewis, who is the Supervisor of Research and Development. So at this time, I will turn the meeting over to Ms. Tyra Brown.
Good evening, everyone. Zoom 1, can you bring Mr. Denenza to the panel, please?
And
All
Dr.
right.
Lewis as well. He's over in attendees.
Thank you. So tonight we'll discuss our school improvement plan, specifically CSI and ATSI. And this is an addendum to the 2018 Every Student Succeeds plan, and where schools provide data elements, clear procedures, and supports at the highest level for student groups outlined as Pennsylvania's Department of Education for equitable access to effective experienced teachers as well. Our school improvement and accountability plans, which Every Student Succeeds or ESSA, have 3 components. We have the comprehensive support plan that's focused on overall student performance. Then we have additional target support and improvement. That's our ATSI schools, and that's performance by 1 or more groups that is or at below level, in addition to the CSI. There is also a targeted support improvement group, but no one in the William Penn School District qualifies under that group. So our first presenter this evening will be Warren Denenza, principal of Penwood Middle School, and he'll be discussing his school's CSI plan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to our comprehensive school improvement plan. My name is Warren Denenza. I am the proud principal here at Penwood Middle School. Tonight, I'm going to talk about our CSI plan in 2 parts. Talk about our team first, and then our process, and then part 2, we'll talk specifically to school improvement planning through the Throughline process, which is new this year from PDE. Oh, give me 1 second. I'm sorry. So before we talk about where we're heading, we want to take a look at where we've been. I have the privilege and the honor of being a part of this process since it came to William Penn and Penwood Middle School in my last year in the classroom. I've seen this process roll out from a teacher as an assistant principal, and now I'm proud to lead us into the future as the proud principal here at Penwood Middle School. Over the past school year, our building, district, and state leaders have monitored our current plan on a regular basis. We conduct bi-weekly updates, monthly monitoring, and quarterly monitoring to review data points, action steps, and to check in where our goals are and see what we have achieved. This process is facilitated by school leaders and stakeholders, and also our school improvement facilitator, Ms. Heather Stoudemire. She is from the DCIU as a part of the teaching and learning department there under the guidance of Ms. Sarah Christensen. This past winter, Building Leadership reached out to school stakeholders to field interest regarding becoming a member of our 2022-2023 CSI Steering Committee. And I am proud to acknowledge those that you see on our screen. We have a fair representation of teachers, guidance, building leaders, and we had a great team that worked really well together in an unprecedented pace. So we're really proud of the contributions and the collaboration that those folks that you see on our screen were a part of this past spring. Next slide, Ms. Brown. Thank you. The group of committed Penwood Middle School stakeholders that you saw on your previous screen work collaboratively to unpack multiple data points and focus groups, feedback to determine next steps for the upcoming school year. As you can see, based on that feedback and those data points, we were able to develop multiple plans to draft and to support school improvement, and all plans were effectively communicated to building staff, families, and district and state leaders. Our CSI plans were a standard agenda item on weekly staff meetings, each parent meeting that we had each month, and each parent newsletter that went out. We spoke to CSI in the process, and we made sure we embedded that information, into our various newsletters. These actions have led us to this moment, and I would like to take a second to thank those that have supported this work. So thank you to everyone at the district level, state level, Penwood Middle School community that have helped us get to this point where we're able to present to the public today. Next slide, please. So part 2 of our process is a little bit new this time around. Like I said, I've been a part of this process for a few years now. So this year, the state of Pennsylvania, the Department of Education introduced a process called the School Improvement Throughline Process. And essentially what it is just a synthesized version of our overall CSI plan. Our CSI plan is generally anywhere from 45 to 90 pages. So the Throughline process provides us kind of an efficient, streamlined document that we're able to reference to keep us on track and speak to with clarity. This past spring, I attended a training regarding this process, and I actually attended the PDE Data Summit in Hershey to speak with state leaders and other school leaders across the state working through the CSI process. The Throughline process is a continuous cycle that begins with the team identifying a learner center problem or an LCP. Once this problem is identified, the team then examines our potential problems of practice or a POP. We then write priority statements to say, if we correct our problem of practice, then the learner should be able to overcome the learner center problem. Once we define our priority statements, we are then able to align these statements with essential practices and determine evidence-based strategies that are aligned with ESSA and decide action plans and action steps to support achievement of our goals and improve student performance and school performance overall. This upcoming school year, Penwood Middle School will focus on essential practices 12 and 13, which specifically speak to the implementation of a positive behavior intervention and support system, which you better well know, or is more known, clearly known as PBIS, and a multi-tiered system of supports, which is better known as an MTSS system. While both of these practices are essential to school improvement and are evidence-based, they are also closely aligned to our strategic plan Focus Forward 2025. In support of strong school practices, the team also identified action steps to ensure that we achieve our goals. Penwood Middle School will focus on strengthening our climate and culture through leadership of a climate and culture coordinator and our PBIS program. We will also regularly provide our staff with job-embedded instructional coaching through the facilitation of our English language arts instructional coach and our math instructional coach. We will ensure and align all of our building level PD to support our staff to improve instruction and ultimately student achievement. And lastly, we will continue to implement universal academic screening, data action planning, and progress monitoring to ensure we're meeting our students where they are and helping them get to areas of excellence. Again, I thank everyone that's been a part of this process and the opportunity to speak on behalf of Penwood Middle School. And I would welcome any questions that the public may have at this time.
So at this time, are there any board of directors that may have questions for Mr. Denenza at this time? Okay, looking at no board of directors that may have any questions. I'm going to the chat. I don't see any comments or any hands raised. Does anyone see anything that I don't see? Just want to make sure. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Denenza.
Thank you very much,
for your
Ms. Boykin.
presentation. Thank you very much. So now we are going to go back to Ms. Tyra Brown. And I don't know if you're going to be presenting on the more for CSI, or we can move on to our ATSI. You'll take the floor on that, Ms. Brown.
No, actually, Dr. Lee is going to come up, but I'm giving 2 seconds to recalibrate my machine.
Okay, no problem. So to everyone, we will now be hearing from Dr. Lee, as Ms. Brown already presented the definitions for CSI and ATSI. Make sure that as board members, we make sure we pay attention to that as well. So now Dr. Lee will be presenting on ATSI for the high school. Dr. Lee, you now have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Boykins. Ms. Brown, actually, there is no slide.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to unplug and come back.
Sure, so I will continue to speak.
Yep, continue to
Regarding.
speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tyra, would you like me to share my screen? I have it up.
Perfect. It's the Wednesday norm for my computer.
Okie dokie, I got you. So give me the ability to share.
So while the screen is coming up, I want to talk to you about our ATSI School Improvement Plan. My name is Judy Lee. I'm the principal at Penwood High School. Our ATSI committee consists of all stakeholders, such as our students, teachers, administrators, parents, and community members. We worked very hard to complete our school improvement plan to ensure that we are providing best support and opportunities for our students with an IEP to make significant academic growth to be able to exit from ATSI. So ATSI designation was given to us from the state because of the students with an IEP data. So we worked with our school improvement facilitator, Heather Sturmeyer, and also central office administration regularly to monitor our progress. We used our diagnostic, formative and summative assessment using our district assessment data analysis to identify our students' areas of growth. And we teach and we assess to track our students' progress. Next, please. The state provided a very specific exit criteria for our students to make progress. So 24% of our students with an IEP on Keystone exam literature and 21.8% of our students with an IEP on Keystone exam algebra 1 needs to be proficient or advanced. The state also provided the graduation rate that is 4 and 5-year adjusted core graduation rate to be targeted with our students with an IEP, and that needs to be 69.4%. The regular attendance rate includes both excused and unexcused absences that our students with an IEP presents to the school. So the school has been working very hard to ensure that our parents understand that the regular attendance rate includes excused absences, so that they are making their appointments after school as much as possible. The state also indicates that the PVAS data for our students with an IEP cannot be read. So in order to meet our goals to exit from ATSI, our ATSI committee and faculty has been working very hard to implement our school improvement plan with fidelity. We use the research-based strategies such as Read 180 program to improve our students' reading skills, Check and Connect, mentor-mentee, after-school program, and positive behavior intervention support to provide our students with highest quality of education while we provide appropriate support. We participate in the year-long professional development to improve our educational practices and reflect how we support our students at Penwood High School. That's all that I have tonight. Do you have any questions?
Are there any board of directors with any questions at this time for Dr. Lee? Any questions from the public? I'm not seeing any. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for your presentation. And also thank you for explaining how, and also, giving us a little bit of data too, that we can kind of like just take in and compare to like previous meetings we had to discuss when we discussed ATSI. And I definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Ms. Boykins.
We'll go on to our district-wide survey that will be discussed by Ms. Danielle Seward. Ms. Danielle, you now have the floor.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. And will be co-presenting this evening with my colleague, Dr. Mark Lewis. He has been very much a partner walking this journey of a district-wide survey with me since he began working at the district in December. He is truly an amazing colleague and a wonderful addition to our team. So without further ado, Dr. Lewis.
Thanks for that introduction, Danielle. So I'm just going to start by sharing some overall participation data on the district-wide survey. So as most people on the call will know, but just as a reminder, we surveyed all William Penn students, all William Penn staff, and all William Penn families at the same time this March. Having all three surveys out at once was certainly a challenge, and I thank the building leaders and all the teachers who helped make the survey a success. Overall, we're very happy with the amount of participation that we had, and I'm showing a little bit of detailed participation information about each of the surveys. I do want to remind everyone that a full accounting of all this is available in the 3 reports about each survey, which are on the William Penn website, and I have been previously shared with the board. So this table on the screen is showing survey responses for students at individual William Penn schools. Overall, our student response rate was about 62%, and this shows a breakdown at each school. So we have been working with principals to get their feedback about what worked for them and what the challenges were. So we're looking forward to building on this as a step for next year. I do also want to remind folks looking at the total number eligible that K through 2 students were not eligible for the survey. It starts 3rd grade all the way through 12th. So those numbers look low. That's the little ones who are missing. All right, and some overall participation. Oh, and another note about the student survey, because the participation rates were different in elementary and secondary grade bands, those results were disaggregated in the report. So a reminder for those who've already read it, but because the rates were different, we didn't want to report, an overall 312 population, or it would have been kind of skewed. So 3rd through 6th and 7th through 12th are reported separately in the findings that we're going to share and the findings that are in the report. All right, so thinking next about the families, calculating the response rate for the family survey is a little bit trickier because families were eligible to take the survey once for all of their children in William Penn schools. So a household with 3 children got 3 invitations to the survey, And some families took us up on submitting multiple things, particularly when they had students in multiple buildings. We got their feedback about each building that their students were in. But so it means there's sort of two ways to think about this. So we sent invitations based on 4,785 students, and we got responses from the families of 687 students. So that's like a student-based response rate of 14%. There were 527 unique households, which I identified based on the street address on record. And that was out of just under 3,000. That is the exact number, 2,999 households represented in the records used to create the invitation. So we heard from the families of 14% of students, and we heard from the household, and we heard from 18% of our households. So we can talk more about that in questions, certainly, if there's any confusion there. And there's more reporting in the full report about, what do we know about folks with multiple students? How did they respond? And some more detail there. So moving on to staff, we received very, very high staff participation. Virtually all of William Penn employees responded to the survey. You'll note that so this table shows all of the different roles of staff that were asked to be, that staff identified themselves as on the survey. We wanted the ability to say, okay, how are Ardmore teachers feeling versus Walnut Street teachers? How are SSOs feeling compared to principals? These roles were shaped, though, by the need for them to be big enough to remain anonymous. So that's why SSOs are grouped all in one category, because we can't say, we heard from the SSO at Ardmore or the two SSOs at Ardmore, here's what they said in the survey. That's not anonymous. So some of these categories are grouped district-wide roles. So many of these roles gave a very high response rate. There are a number of issues with record discrepancies and the way the invitation sent out that result in some cases, more responses than we thought were in the category originally. The full report goes into more detail about some of those issues, but we're taking a lot of lessons learned from some of these patterns. But again, overall, we're very happy with the responses we got and the amount of responses.
All righty. So thank you, Dr. Lewis. As a part of this project, as you know, during the March timeframe, we administered the survey. During the April timeframe, Dr. Lewis was hard at work creating and all of the reports, the result reports that you've received, compiling the data. And during the month of May, we have been working together with our teams to start to review all of the reports. So the cabinet team got together and began deep diving into the reports, working to unpack the data to identify trends that we saw in the data. And Dr. Lewis helped to walk us through different exercises to help us to look at the data in different ways. And this slide just gives you kind of a timeline on how we release the information to all of our stakeholders. Our board members received it on the 17th. All employees received the full reports on the 19th. And all of the principals, again, facilitated by Dr. Lewis and myself, participated in an unpacking work session similar to the one that the cabinet team had done on May 10th to the 16th. And cabinet members were a part of the principals meeting so that we could be there to listen and hear the perspectives of different colleagues and how they were looking at the data from their perspectives as school leaders. So then on June 1st and June 2nd, Ms. Katie Schlesinger created a unique unpacking workshop for all of us as district managers and leaders to further dive into the employee culture and enrollment and engagement survey to help walk us through exercises for reflection and planning on how we would talk to our staff and our teams about what trends they saw in the data, what we reflected on, where are our opportunities for growth, and what came out as some of our, our aha yay moments of we're really doing well there. And so we shared and we worked together on June 1st and June 2nd so that we can prepare ourselves to share our reflections and prepare our staff so that we can dive even deeper into the information. Then on June 6th, the cabinet team came together again to dive deeper into the themes that we have been listening, learning, and rereading in our reports to gain a greater understanding on the themes, but then to also start to align them to our strategic plan and to also look at priority themes. So we know we can't do everything, but we know we can do something. And so with that in mind, we work together to start to really wrestle with the data and look at the work that we're currently planning on doing and have been doing through the strategic plan so that we're, using our resources and our time wisely and using this data to affect change in how we are planning our work for the next year. And then on June 13th, all principals, we have been preparing our principals through that workshop that I spoke about in the previous slide to have initial conversations with their staff before the school year ends so that we, again, start that conversation with our staff and incorporate it in our planning for next year. So with all of that unpacking, these are the themes that we started to identify in the different types of surveys. And so I'm not going to read each one of them, but I am going to highlight a few. And Dr. Lewis, I invite you to please jump in if you want to add any context. One of the things that stood out to us was that the secondary voice of the students was saying very loud and clear that they wanted more individual attention and help and encouragement and support from teachers. Also, the majority of our 3rd through 6th grade students, 60%, and about a third of 7th through 12th graders, 34%, say their teachers frequently or almost always seem excited to be teaching their classes. This student voice was really important to us to hear what their perception was of how their teachers showed up for class, but also how they show up for their school as well. So like number 7, 75% of 3rd through 5th graders, 5th grade students say that their teachers are quite respectful and extremely respectful toward them. That's huge, that's high. That means that I see that you truly do care for me. And that means a lot to us. And the fact that 85% of our 7th through 12th grade students and 84% of 6th grade students said that almost half almost or all of their teachers are respectful. Again, it goes to the perception of students and how they see adults interacting with them. Dr. Lewis, did I miss anything? Do I need to highlight anything?
No, I don't have anything to add, but happy to talk more about any of these in questions if people have things they want to talk about.
So with the family survey, these are the high level themes that we identified in that. Our elementary families reported more often than families of secondary students that they discussed their students' progress, that children enjoying their child's school, and that children at their child's school respect their teachers. So basically that point is saying that our elementary families were reporting that the elementary students reported more often than the families of secondary students that they're discussing the students' progress, their children are enjoying school more, and they're respecting their teachers more. That was from the family perspective. We also got some feedback from families about safety at their school, and a majority of families in the 7th to 12th grade, and a majority of families in kindergarten through 6th grade responded positively about safety, saying that their child feels only slightly unsafe or not safe at all. Next, in our staff survey, these 6 themes really jumped out at us. It was abundantly clear that many of our staff feel overworked and feel that the workloads are unsustainable. One of the things that stood out was SSOs felt the most valued by their supervisor and close colleagues. We also saw that there is definitely a sincere desire for more growth and development opportunities amongst our staff. And a little more than half of the staff gave positive responses about their experiences of feeling belonging and understood in their schools. So what's next for us in this process? Well, here is our handy dandy planning document that we've been following. And as you can see along the right-hand side, we have all these green completes, which makes me very, very happy. And here we are today. You get the honor of seeing me turn this to green because we've had this meeting today with you. So as you see, next we will be meeting with our principals. We are having the conversation with our staff, as I mentioned before, and then we go into phase 3, where we discuss major themes with our principals, as well as debriefing about our lessons learned from this experience. As Dr. Lewis mentioned earlier, we have been keeping a very long list of things that we've learned and things that we are going to be doing to improve our experience for next year. So that is the plan, and now we are done. I would be very happy to take any questions you may have.
So thank you very much, Dr. Lewis, and also thank you very much, Ms. Seward, for presenting this information. Can we pull the presentation back up? I just have a few questions.
Yep.
Um,
No problem.
Can we go back to the first slide, starting from the first slide?
No problem.
So Dr. Lewis, you had mentioned that there are some things with regard to the percent of completion, some things, how information may have been distributed out, may have been a reasoning, one of the reasonings of why we have certain numbers or different. So I was just going to say, can you elaborate a little bit on those, other things besides like how we distribute the emails or information that may have caused our percentages to be low? Because like, for instance, when I'm looking at Penwood Middle School, looking at CSC and GAC, I would want to see a higher percentage, especially in our high school area, in our middle school area. So I just want to know, where do you think, or where can we raise those numbers, or could have raised those numbers?
Thanks for that question. That's certainly a complicated one. So there's a couple different pieces to this. So one is something a lot of people want to know about surveys is, did we get enough people to trust the results, right? And in my view, we did, because there's not really like a magic number, a magic response rate that means once you cross that, then you really know that you can pay attention to the results. And one of the key indicators we look at that, there's more detail about in the report, is representativeness, right? So when you look at the demographics of the response rates for 7th through 12th graders, nothing sticks out as getting, one group of students, but not another. So for example, I would be really concerned about the results if somehow, way more 7th graders responded, but almost no 8th graders responded. Then it's like, okay, Mr. Denenzo wants to look at results for the middle school, but he didn't hear from 8th graders, right? That would be an issue. But when we look at grade level and when we look at student demographics like L status, IEP status, and race, all of these have tables in the full report, but nothing makes us stop and think, uh-oh, we really can't trust these results from secondary students. So,
Okay.
so that's sort of the big picture of like, how do we feel about the rates that we got? In terms of how we can increase it, I think, going through it the subsequent times, going through it another time, we will be able to like learn from the ways that it was implemented this year. Like one thing on my mind is that I forget, I wish I could acknowledge the very great idea from a principal that came out about a week into the survey, but somebody asked, could you look at who submitted a response already and tell us by homeroom who's responded and who hasn't, right? And I said, oh, that's a fantastic idea. I worked up a solution to do that. And that really helped some schools drive participation higher. It was a less useful tool for the secondary schools because of how homerooms work, versus elementary, where in most cases that's your teacher. But that's an example of something we developed this time around that next time will be in place from the very beginning. So we'll be able to use strategies like that to drive higher response rates from the start.
And thank you for explaining that, because what I was thinking is, by looking at the themes that were presented, and I'm saying, did we get a clear vision or a clear view from the middle school level and up? Because, like, for instance, one of the results what we had looked at, it talked about how, I think it said 3rd through 5th grade, how they felt as though 85% felt as though the teachers respected them, and it was a respectful environment. And I want to make sure that we're obtaining that from the elementary to the middle to the high school, that the kids are having that same experience. So that's why I'm asking, that question to you to make sure, clearly we know it's not, a false positive type of thing as far as the presentation of data. But I'm saying, just want to make sure we can maintain that. And how do we make sure that the responses are true and evident and speak to what we're doing all throughout? That's why I was asking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. And two other things that come to mind. One is, I want to remind everyone that there were 2 versions of the survey. One was given to 3rd through 5th graders and one given to 6th through 12th graders. Now that is certainly a lesson learned. In the future, we do not want to give a different set to 6th graders because it makes things harder it's just double the amount of things to worry about for our elementary buildings. We want to give a consistent set of questions to all the students in our elementary schools, as long as they remain K through 6. So that is something that will help our interpretation of the results next time around.
Gotcha.
There's another piece. So at the principals meeting that Danielle mentioned, some principals were asking, what does this look like by grade? We see these differences from elementary to secondary. What might be because that happens as you get older, and what's really a difference between the buildings, right? So that was a supplemental analysis that, I've been able to do very recently that showed, some of these trends you can see. Third grade is the highest, 4th is a little lower, 5th is a little lower, 6th, and then by the time you're in 7th grade, it's still lower. And some are not like that. Some do change when you're in a middle school environment, right? Okay. So those are, examples of further investigations of some of these trends that are part of these conversations Danielle reviewed.
Awesome. And it was 2 different surveys. Is it because probably just a question, was the elementary survey a little more basic or broken down so they could be able to have
it was the reading level. It was the reading level.
Okay.
So in addition to reading level, some of the questions were phrased quite differently with the expectation that students had multiple teachers. So the 3rd through 5th question might be, how respectful is your teacher? Whereas the 6th through 12th question is like, how many of your teachers are respectful? None of them, some of them, about half of them, and so on. And that again it's unfortunate for our elementary buildings that they have this like very different kind of question language they have to work with for just 6th graders. So in the future, we want to make that consistent for a building.
That makes sense. So why you may have done it that way. My apologies. My dog was barking.
No worries.
barking. Okay, thank you for explaining that. Can we go on to the if you can move forward? I didn't have any. Oh yes, can you go back to the 18%? Yes. Can you explain when you said a household-based response, that was from like the family as far as family response?
Yeah, so it goes back to that first point that if, a William Penn family, so like I'm thinking of my neighbors two doors down, right? So there's 2 William Penn kids in the house, right? So they got a letter that said, here's your student. They actually think they got 2 letters, right? Here's your 2 students, here's their student IDs. Take the survey. If you have multiple students, you can take one for each child. And we encourage you to do so if they're in multiple buildings, because then you're an Ardmore family and a Penwood Middle family, right? So we want your feedback about both schools. We had to give people a chance to respond for each one of their kids if we wanted to capture those voices. So from that, let's say my neighbor responds for one of her kids, but not the other. So we've heard from the household. So she's in a household-based response rate as out of the total number of households, which in this case was 2,999. And out of the number of students, she only responded for one of her kids, right? So there's 4,785 students whose families got invitations.
Yeah.
And we got 687 responses. There's just shy of 3,000 households, and we heard from 527 households.
Gotcha.
So that gap is folks who responded for all of their kids or some of their kids and so on.
Thank you. Think that it answers my question. Thank you very much for explaining that as well. Can you move forward, Danielle? Sorry. Go back one. Hold on. Just wanted to make sure I didn't have any. We'll go back one more. Okay. Yes. Okay. So my question here was with regard to why was there such a low percentage of school-based secretary responses? Is there a reasoning behind that?
The report notes that some staff were concerned the survey wasn't truly anonymous. So it's my belief that can affect response rates. And I'm trying to see.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't believe I reported. Yeah, I don't want to get into more detail than what's in the report already.
Oh, that's no problem.
Yeah, I know that some folks were worried that it wasn't anonymous. I think there may, because it's like one of those district-wide categories, it may not have been totally clear, like, we'll just know that this respondent is a school-based secretary somewhere. We don't know what building they're in. That's something, it's certainly a priority in my role to make sure as we do data collection like this, as we do research, on ourselves, that we can create trust around surveys, trust around focus groups, whatever it is we're doing to hear from staff, that they know how the information is going to be used, who's reading it, and that kind of thing. So, I can't speculate about their reasons for choosing to respond or not to respond that far, but I know that's something that's on some staff members' minds.
And first and foremost, I want to say, I didn't just want to point out the negative. First and foremost, the response rate is awesome. You can tell you guys did a great job with this. So I just first have to say that. I'm not just trying to pull out such a low number.
Oh, yeah. No problem.
I want you to know. Yeah, because I mean, 80% and higher, you can clearly see this. You did a great job with this. I just wanted to ask with that because it was so low. And the fact that the first thing that came to my mind when you were speaking was trust. And I was going to say to you and Danielle, I know this will continue to build our trust while we put these surveys out. And I was just going to ask, well, how can we make people understand and know that this is truly anonymous? That was something that came to my mind. And I know that may not be able to be answered tonight, and it's something we may have to put our heads together. But I hope that in the future, the staff can trust us, enough to know that this is anonymous and this is a tool that we're utilizing to get better. So I just, hope we can work on that.
And
Completely agree.
that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to highlight how seriously we are taking this as leaders in this district. We are diving deep into this data. And it's interesting because as we read every single comment in the open-ended comments. And I know there were a couple of staff folks who said, I don't even think they're really going to read this. I don't think they're going to do anything with this. And I really wanted to show that we really put forth a serious effort to listen to your voice. And as a result of that, we are using the data, your voice, to inform how we are moving forward. And I hope that through seeing the fidelity of our actions and our works, we will build trust. And then when we do this again next year, they will be able to say, oh, I see what they did, how they used this information to inform the work that we do for the next year. So I sincerely hope that we can do that through this effort.
Yeah, I'm very excited about continuing efforts like these as well. I do want to briefly clarify one of the sort of layers of anonymity is that I was the only person to read every single response. And then the summary, which entered into the report, is what was shared with the cabinet. So, and there's a footnote in there about some responses that were shared with HR, who was kind of hosting the staff survey, as it were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know there is some concern. Sometimes people can get, as is noted in the report, sometimes people, although it's anonymous, give a lot of detail in open-ended responses. And the layer of summarizing is there to say, here's what this person is reporting, but I'm not going to, pass on their whole story in case it could be recognized.
Thank you definitely for explaining that too, Dr. Lewis. I think that's important for people to know the information you just stated as well. So thank you for that. I just have one more question. Keep going through the slides for everything else. Keep going. You guys are doing a lot on June 13th. I'm not going to make any comments, but first of all, you're killing me. I mean, you got graduation going on.
Hey, we got to fit it in somewhere.
I know. I'm just hoping everybody's calm. Okay, keep going through.
Okay.
Okay. So for the student survey themes and the teacher, the household survey themes, family survey themes. My question is, first of all, once again, thank you, Dr. Lewis, and thank you, Ms. Seward, for the information. I like how you put the themes together to kind of identify what areas we could definitely improve in and things of that nature. I guess my question is, one, Dr. Lewis, is there a way that you can present this just with the school board so the school board can have more, I guess, intense questioning with regard to when it comes down to the themes? Like, I know certain board of directors will probably ask more questions around how, what is our next steps? And I know that you're probably going to present this information to us on how, but I know that sometimes, we want to get a little bit deeper into the survey and ask a little more questions that we might would not ask more so in the public, but amongst board of directors. So if there is, Ms. Seward, is there a time that you can put out there that school board directors can meet with both of you to ask more questions around the survey? That would be great. I would definitely appreciate it. And with regard to the themes, I want to know, now we have this information, how are we going to address the certain things? The big thing that came out to me was the respect. Number 7 and number 8, I wish I could see that at 100%, and I know that some people students are always going to have their, their feelings as well. But I just, I hope that we can raise that. And also with number 1, secondary students want more individual attention, help, encouragement, and support from their teachers. I would like to see how we're going to do that, and what things do we have in place already around that will be really important for the board to know with regard to what support systems we already have in place. I know some we already know, but is there more that we don't know? And what are we going to do about that? So those are the only questions I had. And then after that, we can just open the floor up to other board directors that may also have similar questions as well. Thank you.
All right.
I have a question. So Ms. Stewart and Dr. Lewis, thank you very much for your work on this. My question is really regarding next steps. I'm taking a look at the survey themes for all three groups and the plan for moving forward. We have discussion on the themes identified, and we're talking about next year's themes and next year's survey planning. But where is it that we're going to identify those themes as like a 1, 2, or 3 to highlight as something we're going to work on and put that plan together? Where is that in relative to all of this? It may be in there, I may have missed it, but I know we can't address everything. So maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that the school is going to work on. They've heard it all. They may work on all the different pieces at different times, but what are the 3 major goals or something like that? Where is that in all of this? And I may have missed it.
That was where I spoke about the January 6th meeting that happened with our cabinet members. So we as leaders start that process. And so we came back together with all of the themes. So there actually were about 9 pages of themes that we took, not only from our unpacking sessions, but also from the principal's unpacking sessions. And we went through 3 different exercises to prioritize, and again, to truncate and bring things together and to align them to the strategic plan. And what we did as an outcome of that meeting was to identify, I believe it was 4 we came out with that are the major things that we now can use to plan now. So now we've identified it, and now our next step as a result from that meeting is to start planning, to start aligning timelines and resources and who does what. So that's in progress. So we actually started that on Monday.
Okay, and is that ready to share, like what they were highlighted, or is that still in progress?
That is still in progress.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right.
But it is happening. It is happening.
Okay. And then at the school level, I guess they're going to start that process on June 13th and continue with that next year.
Yes.
Is what I'm gathering.
Yes, sir.
And well,
Okay.
they've begun that process in terms of meeting together as a group of principals on, I think that was the May 26th. So that was a chance that they got to spend time with all 3 surveys and discuss with each other and share insights. The 13th is sort of the last day that they might talk about the results with their staff as an initial building level conversation. And some of those are maybe earlier than the 13th. It's sort of up to building discretion to find time for that. It is a busy time of the year, of course, as Ms. Boykins noted.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Ms. Hart?
Yeah. Yep, there you go.
Thank you, and thanks for doing all this. I guess the elephant in the room, and it's not a William Penn problem, it's a problem, is the workload that the teachers feel and how it's unsustainable. That's a nationwide problem. I wonder how we begin to address that for them.
That's a hard one. That really is a hard one to start diving into. And quite frankly, I don't feel like I can speak to that right now. I think it's something we still have to continue to unpack as we are, moving forward with our planning for next year. But I agree with you. It's a huge problem that we've been hearing from our colleagues all over the nation.
I want to just briefly thank and acknowledge the many staff members who responded to the survey to describe that problem for us and put words to it and really thoughtfully tell, how the circumstances that we live in have affected their work and what, their primary concerns are in service of our students.
One thing I just was going to say to that, since it seems like a countrywide, globally, of what we're dealing with regard to teachers being really stressed out. Maybe even though we had this survey, but maybe it's something, just giving a suggestion, maybe it's something that you could have like a weekly or monthly teachers talk and have them have ideas, which you may already do. Maybe they can bring some ideas, because I know, like, for instance, when we had, what was it? What did we do at our Wednesdays? That Dr. B. Coates had put in place. Where
Half day Wednesdays?
yes. So that was something, yes, that was something that we tried to put in place to help help with the stress of the job and things. I really feel like this is something that we should like throw back to the teachers to try to come around and just throw it around and figure out what ideas they have that could help release their stress. Because I feel like in this situation, they're the only ones that know what they're going through. You know, we may feel like we know, but they're in it, you know? So I think like if we could kind of put it back to them, you know, as you're figuring out the how to this, if we could just put it back in their hands, get a suggestion box or things, you know. I had discussed, I think one day we used to have, well, this job I had, we used to have a day where they would celebrate the employees and they would pull out a red carpet and they would come in and they would have massage chairs and things of that nature. You know, maybe that's something that we can start doing. I'm not sure, but I just really ask that if we can push that question back to them to just try to get some more thoughts in the wheelhouse.
Definitely, definitely.
And thank you, Jen, for bringing that up too. Are there any other questions from Board of Directors or from the floor? I mean, you know, anyone in the audience? Okay, I'm not hearing none or seeing none. I just had a quick question for Mr. Denenza and Dr. Lee. My question is with regard to the CSI and ATSI, will our schools always be ATSI and CSI? And I know the goal is to get out of it. You know, this is a plan to get out of it. But I'm just wondering, because since I've been here on the board, I want to say for, I've been here going on 7 years, I feel like we've always had that discussion around ATSI and CSI. So I just wanted to ask, you know, do we see ourselves coming out of that? What year do we see ourselves coming out of that? Is this something that our schools are always going to be targeted with? You know, if you can just talk on that.
Sure. So the exit criteria for ATSI was given to us for a 3-year cycle.
Okay.
So by the end of this school year, we were supposed to exit from ATSI. However, the pandemic made basically significant disruption because we did not have the Keystone exam for the school year 2019-2020. So without the Keystone scores, we are not be able to identify the proficiency of Keystone exam literature and algebra 1 with our students with an IEP. So the state is updating the exit criteria as we speak, because when I was working on the school improvement plan, I asked the state, what is my exit criteria for the school year 2022 and 23? Because I do not have that exit criteria. And the state said that because of the pandemic, we are using the exit criteria for school year 22-23 for another year. So that's where we are.
Okay.
We are hoping that we'll be able to exit from ATSI by the end of next school year.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for that. Now, with regards to Keystones, they're bringing that back into play now, which will help. Okay, so then that'll give us a better. Okay, thank you for explaining that. Is that I didn't see Mr. Denenza on here, but is that the same thing with regard to Mr. Denenza? That would that be his response as well?
Yes, it would be.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that. And so hopefully by next year we'll hear something different, and we'll be out of this ATSI and CSI plan. So thank you for that, Dr. Lee, and thank you, Ms. Brown, also for responding. Are there any other questions at this time? Board of Directors, do you have any other questions for Dr. Lewis, Ms. Tyra Brown, Ms. Danielle Seward, or Dr. Lee, or Mr. Denenza at this time? All right, seeing none, hearing none. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your time today. This was a great presentation, very thorough. Excuse me if it wasn't a whole lot of questions, but you guys really answered a lot, and you also presented very well, things that we normally would ask, it was in there. You know, Dr. Lewis, thank you very much for what you're doing. You know, I can't imagine sitting in front of the screen reading 1,000 comments. You know, I've been there before. So I definitely understand that's a lot of work, but I can see and tell that you just take pride in this, and we appreciate the work that you're doing and all of you are doing. Thank you very much to the cabinet as well. And everybody have a great night. And yeah, let's get ready for this graduation coming up. Coming up.
Can't wait.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.